Hi, I'm Hans Wilhelm, and today I want to speak about our transition into the spiritual realms, which many call death. The spiritual world has given us some very practical and interesting suggestions which most people are not aware of. Let's look at them.
For instance, we can ask ourselves, what do we prefer, cremation or burial? These days about 60% choose cremation over burial in America. It does have some economical, hygienic and ecological advantages compared to burials. Most religions have different laws on cremation and burial. For instance, with a few exceptions, traditional Jews bury the dead within 24 hours. Traditional Muslims believe only in burials. Most of Christianity has opposed cremation because of the Bible quote on the resurrection of the physical body on Judgment Day. However, the Catholic Church has lifted its ban on cremation in 1963. To make the right choices for ourselves and others, it may help us to firstly look at what actually takes place at the moment of death. Let's start with a person who has lived by the spiritual laws of love for the most part and has no fear of death because he knows life is eternal and will continue in the spiritual world after his material existence. As the soul unfolds itself from the physical body, the silver cord or the information band, the connection to the body is cut. That is the moment of death for everyone. For such a prepared soul, there linger no more any energetic ties or attachments to its mortal shell. Then, depending on the death, the soul first stands next to its deceased body and now continues to breathe in a totally different rhythm. It is helpful to remember that the soul can now not only hear every word spoken in the vicinity, but also sense all the thoughts and feelings of people in the room and beyond. Now, spiritual beings like its guardian angel and the higher developed souls of former friends and relatives assist the soul. They welcome the soul that is parting from matter and help it find its place in the beyond. For such a soul, death is nothing but graduation from the earth school. It is a celebration. That is the ideal transition from the material world into the spiritual realms. In such an instance, it really doesn't matter whether the body is cremated or buried after at least 2 or 3 days, because some souls need a little longer to fully disconnect from the body. Unfortunately, people do give this little thoughts when a loved one has died, and often feel that they have to hurry up and get the body out of the way now that the person is dead. They may also choose a church service or funeral home to make the funeral arrangements, which can be very somber at times. Are we sure that the person passing over really wants to see and feel the crying and sadness at such events? Because most likely, the soul may be present at the ceremony. Do they want to be mourned? Christ reminded us, "Do not mourn your dead, for the one who mourns the loss of a person does not consider the gain of the soul, which, if it has lived in me, the Christ, enters into higher consciousness spheres of life." You may want to watch my special video on mourning and grieving that takes a closer look at this. But the whole situation is very different when the person did not prepare for death. If he lived solely on the material level, without spiritual aspirations, without being oriented to the divine, then his thinking and striving, his whole consciousness is strongly fixed on the living conditions of the human life on earth that he desperately holds on to. The soul of such a person is very attached to the physical body because it is the only identity and life the soul knows and believes in. At the time of death, it resists the letting go of the body and thereby can delay the cutting of the silver cord. From the medical perspective, such a person may be declared dead because there are no more any brain waves. But in truth, this soul may still be very much connected via the silver cord to the body. Anything that now happens to the body is still intensely felt by the soul. For instance, organ transplants are done to patients that are declared brain dead, but where the heart still beats and the body breathes. This ripping open of the body and taking out of organs is fully sensed and experienced by the soul. This is the reason why the body needs to be sedated for the transplant to avoid the famous Lazarus effect or other violent reflexes by the organ donor, which is caused by the intense pain the soul experiences. I've explained it more in my video on the horrors of organ transplant. So let me repeat this. The soul of a medically declared brain-dead person is not routinely separated from his body, which still breathes and has a heartbeat. Gabriele writes, "If the information cord that is also a conductor of pain and connects soul and body is not totally detached from the one dying, then the so-called corpse that is to be cremated or buried experiences something similar horrible to the removal of organs. For such a person it may require several days and even more until the silver cord is fully severed. It really depends on how the person lived in the temporal. It helps to remember that dying is a process. Therefore, many cultures have the custom of a wake that can take several days for good reasons. But even when the silver cord is completely cut, the consciousness of a spiritually underdeveloped soul can still cling to the lifeless physical body, not via the silver cord, but via magnetic currents or threads. The more the person's thoughts and interests were concentrated on the earthly life and the enjoyment of material pleasures, the greater these magnetic currents, the attachment to the body, its physical house, since it thinks that life is possible solely in a material body. Can we now see that burial, especially embalming or mummification, can result in such souls clinging to its beloved but decaying body for decades, if not centuries? Religious beliefs can cause the same result. For instance, the belief that on Judgment Day their buried bones will be resurrected again has kept many religious indoctrinated souls attached to their graves for hundreds of years. Let's also talk about the many souls that are not even aware that they have died, particularly in sudden death situations, like accidents, or where the person simply does not believe in life after death. They can be very confused and disoriented. They can become what we call EarthBound Souls and can cause harm to themselves and others. There are millions of them roaming among us here on Earth. I speak about them in my video on Death and Dying Part 2 and Spirit Possession. Christ reminds us, the opinion of the human being forms the bond which, after the passing of the body, draws the soul back to where it once enjoyed its passions and pleasures as a human being. If you remain an alcoholic until the end of your life on earth, your soul will be among alcoholics again. The soul of a glutton will feel at home where there is an abundance of food and stimulants. It will be drawn to where people focus their main attentions on pleasures and the like. The soul of a drug addict will once again be where the same people live, where these substances can be obtained. The one who indulges in desires and passions will once again, as soul, be among those who think and live similarly. Can we now grasp how important it is for us to know as much as possible about the spiritual aspects of life? Because a further possibility is that a soul which does not have any inklings about the spiritual life and does not know where they are going upon death can get caught up in the dark and push themselves back into another incarnation instead of moving forward. The spiritual world points out that every person dies differently depending on his or her beliefs and circumstances.
This video was inspired by these books. All of them are listed below this video with links for more information. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and I see you in my next video.